Hey everybody, this is Reflections on Hey Chaplain, where we take a moment to go back and reflect on previous content, to explain or elaborate on the podcast or videos, and answer questions or just generally clarify. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts I made immediately after recording the video called 1,000 Moral Decisions. In this case, what I left out of the 2-minute video was itself a kind of moral decision. So I wanted to note that I too noticed that there was much more I could say about social issues like racism. For those of you asking me about some of the moral or theological questions this video brings up and that I didn't specifically address, well, we'll have to cover that at another time. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoy this episode of Reflections on Hey Chaplain. So I just made a video, and I've got to say I've kind of got mixed feelings about it. Not because I thought I made a bad video. I think it's a good video, and I believe in what I said. But there is a kind of an elephant in the room effect going on with it, because the video is a chaplain video directed at police officers and giving them this advice that they shouldn't get bogged down worrying about these big issues, these 30,000-foot view type issues that would distract them and keep them occupied about these really big societal issues, when instead they really should concentrate on their personal integrity and, maybe in more Christian parlance, their holiness. And if they do that would have a greater contribution to our society and to our city specifically. And I believe that's good advice. I think that's important. But the greater context, that this video kind of brushes by and doesn't really address is the issue of racism. And that bothers me that something that important, you would kind of swerve by and kind of wave at it as you sail by and not address it. And I did that for a few reasons. I mean, first of all, I believe, in the call for personal integrity and for personal holiness. I think that we need to encourage people to make better moral decisions in the small things. And, I just think that there's too much in our society where we get hung up on these big societal issues, and meanwhile, your personal life is a complete mess. And I'm not sure if I want to hear you talk about the reform of police if you're not even able to reform your own life enough to stop sleeping with the neighbor's wife. And so that matters, that it's a true statement that we all need to look to our own business and keep that right and do the right thing, in our personal lives. But then on a secondary level, I'm thinking of that 25-year-old officer who has a lot on his plate, and he's trying to digest what it means to go out on patrol and to deal with the public and have his nose rubbed in all of the worst parts of society, just all the evil that man can do to man. And frankly, I don't want him lost in the clouds. I kind of, just for his own personal well-being, I'd like to just keep him grounded and focused on what's in front of him. And so thinking in the micro versus the macro sense, I think is important. And third, I think that this video is not intended to do it because racism is an important enough topic that it probably needs its own video. And so you talk about the 30,000-foot view and stepping away from that and just focusing on your own personal integrity. Well, that's easier said than done, because there's some people in society who don't have the luxury of ignoring the 30,000-foot view, because those big, huge societal type issues come right down from 30,000 feet to where they live and affect them all the time. They live with a level of scrutiny that me, as a white guy in my 40s, I really don't experience it. In fact, working with the police has kind of rubbed my nose in that. Not because I've experienced any kind of racism or extra scrutiny, but because I noticed the lack of it. I came in as an outsider, as a chaplain. I'm not a sworn officer, And suddenly I'm walking into crime scenes, or at least around crime scenes, and, police headquarters and places like that. And people, cast this extremely casual glance at me and say, oh, white dude in his 40s, he must be here for a reason. And I'm walking around in a button-up shirt, blue jeans, and tennis shoes. I mean, I'm not dressed in any kind of uniform, but they just kind of, give me a half a second look and dismiss it as, well, he must be here for some reason. He's here, on some sort of business, certainly. And it really kind of took me aback, because early on, especially before I knew anybody, and they wouldn't have just known me by name or just recognized me, I was really surprised at how often people just didn't care that I was hanging around. I'd go up to the chief's office, and I'd go, walk down and talk to the detectives and visit a roll call and do the kind of chaplain work that I think a chaplain ought to do. But boy, I just never got stopped and asked, can I see your ID, or what are you doing here? Are you lost, or anything? And so I'm sure that if I can be conscious of the lack of scrutiny, the kind of racism, the kind of scrutiny, the kind of bigotry that a lot of people experience in life can certainly affect them and change the way they look at things and affect how they see life as a whole. And like I said, that's a big enough topic that I think it deserves its own conversation. There's so much more to say here, but we'll have to draw a line under it for now. If you have a question or suggestions, please leave a comment or send me a message. Please like, share, and subscribe so that the algorithms will like me. Thank you for listening to Reflections on Hey Chaplain.